just a few words. If I could reach your heart with those simple words, maybe we could learn to trust. See the best in us.
Welcome to our storytelling contest for the National Speakers Association New Mexico chapter. I'm Gail Rubin, a past president of the New Mexico chapter and your MC for today's contest. In this contest, we have speakers who will speak for up to 5 minutes, giving us a compelling story. And the winner of our chapter contest will go on to a regional competition with the National Speakers Association. And the winners of the regional contest get to speak on the main stage for the National Speakers Association main convention Influence to be held August of 2024. We're very excited to have you participate in our studio audience, as well as joining us on TV. We are so glad to have you here. Well, let's get the contest started. Our first speaker is TK O'Geary, facilitator with fortitude. Please welcome TK.
You could hear the trepidation in my little 3-year-old voice as I was talking to my father. I want to ride the big bike. You see, there was such an exciting children's activity coming up in the neighborhood, and I was still on a tricycle, but I wanted to ride a big bike. But I was afraid. I want to ride the big bike, but I can't. Oh, mistake number 1. In our family growing up, the word can't was not allowed. It was always met with, maybe not yet, maybe not this way, maybe something different. Dad looked at me and said, "It's possible." Yes, it's possible. Let's get started. How many of you remember riding a bike for the first time? That total freedom that you had, racing down the street, the wind blowing through your hair, and you just felt so free. Did you ever turn your bike into a horse or something else? I wanted so bad to learn how to ride this bike. And we got out there and we tried. Didn't work, fell down. We made some adjustments, tried. Dad was so encouraging. You can do this, it's possible. Oh my gosh, I wanted to so bad. He said, let's figure this out. What do you think's getting in the way? Well, my feet aren't working quite right. So we adjusted the pedals. We got a little bit farther. Still wasn't working out. What else do you think we should try? Well, the seat feels funny. So we went out and bought a different seat. The seat felt better, but still I just wasn't getting it. And then Dad said, we'll try again later. He went inside, and I was so determined because it was always, let's figure it out. It's not it's can't, it's possible. I figured out those stupid training wheels. Every time you sit there and you try and go back and forth, you're falling on those little training wheels. I took off the training wheels. Yeah, I went into Dad's tool chest in the garage, got him out, took off the training wheels, and the next thing you know, my mother's saying, Art, your daughter's riding a bike. Why? It was because he believed me. He said it's possible, and you can make it happen. I took this lesson on through my life, and every time I was ever involved with a group or a team or led a project, no matter how impossible it might seem, it's possible was how we lived the project. Including one time when I was in my office, I was a government consultant. We used to run large-scale IT software programs for different entities. And the boss came in, the big boss, and he said, "TK, I got a project for you." This was 1999, the year 2000 was coming up, and there were all sorts of calculations that were done using a 2-digit year. But when the calendar rolled over to the year 2000, many of these calculations were going to be kaput, calculating incorrectly. And we did a lot of work with human services. Less than 6 months to go before January 1st came rolling around, and we have a contract. The state is being fined, they're being investigated, the government doesn't think they're ready, and they don't think they'll be able to take care of their citizens. We want you to lead the project for the business continuity and contingency plan to make it work. I know that, let's see, somebody hates me, this is impossible, I'm going to be fired, but let's just give it a go. So as I marched into that state, I thought, okay, it's possible, we can do this. And normally I would go in on the night before, on the flight, but I decided to change my flight and take a different one earlier. You know how when you just listen to the whisper? And I got in on this flight in the afternoon, and it was good because the flight I was supposed to be on actually crashed that night. People were burned. I thought, okay, this is really not going to work. But we continued on with the It's Possible. We started putting everything together. We knew that we had to have people's time. We knew we had to be good with their time. We knew we had to show progress because we didn't have time to share that time with people and still get this done. So we created a spreadsheet, and you never wanted to be the yellow box that was behind. And we made it happen because we believed it's possible. So when you believe it's possible, you have people who believe it's possible, and you tell people it's possible, you can make the impossible happen. So go believe, because it's possible.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Norm Dawson. Dr. Dawson embarked on his journey as a professional speaker at the remarkable age of 74. His speeches are not only inspirational, but also deeply educational, shedding light on a significant and often overlooked connection between hearing loss and dementia. Today, Dr. Dawson will share his personal and profound journey, a journey to hear again. Please welcome Dr. Norm Dawson.
Picture this. We're sitting in the doctor's office for 3 hours with my wife, my mother, my surgeon, an audiologist. And after 3 hours of this procedure, I had to go to the bathroom badly. This was in a hospital setting, so I went to the nearest bathroom in the hospital, down the hall, got into the bathroom, flipped the switch. Oh, it was the fan. Okay. Then, of course, I relieved myself. It was like a fire hose. And then I flushed the toilet. Like Niagara Falls. Well, I went back to the room where the audiologist was, and I said, am I going to hear like this for the rest of my life? And she said, oh, no, it's going to calm down. Your brain will get used to it. You see, I had just realized my vision. Let me back up a couple of months here. A couple months before this procedure, I was at a family reunion with my wife, and we were signing to each other in sign language. My niece came up to me, and she says, hey, Norm, did you know that there's a device called a cochlear implant, and that will allow you to hear on the phone? No way! Yes, way! Okay, 30 days later, I was scheduled for my surgery. And that's where they put the hardware in. You can see the side of my head here where I've got the external part. But they actually put this hardware inside my brain. I became a bionic man. And about 30 days later, I ended up in this procedure in this doctor's office, and they used the computer to hook me up to the apparatus. Well, when I was 27 years old, which was 25 years before this, I had gone into my audiologist office, and she said, Norm, after 25 years of a progressive hearing loss, you are now totally and completely deaf. Deaf as a doorknob. Deaf as a post, like Helen Keller. And she said, "This is permanent. You'll never hear again," is what I heard her saying. Well, just before that, about a year or so before, I had gone to several seminars on personal growth and development. And I remembered a little notion that I had. It said, whatever you believe and conceive, you can achieve. That's from Napoleon Hill. But I knew that I could choose. And I made up my mind at that point that I was going to hear again, no matter what. Now, talk about an obstacle. Talk about a challenge. When I was told I couldn't hear, I thought, how am I going to go to college? How am I going to get into a relationship? How am I going to get a job? Huge obstacles. I ended up going back to college, getting 3 college degrees. I got married again. I've just been married for 44 years last week. I got 4 kids. It's like a miracle. I remember hearing, after I got this procedure, I remember hearing my kids for the very first time in my life. I got to hear my wife after 25 years for the first time. One time my kids were playing the piano, and I had not heard them play, but people were telling me before I got the cochlear implant, "Your kids play beautifully." Yeah, sure. Come to find out, I heard them playing one day, and my kids really do know how to play the piano. Wow, that was a trip. So I continued on this journey over time and started to use my cochlear implant to do more things, became a doctor. Then, 14 years after this procedure, I got my second implant, which you can see on the other side here. Now I've got 2 of these babies. What I was able to do was to do things that I had not been able to do before, like I became a live theater actor in the local stage here in town because I could hear the actors in the cues. Now I play a ukulele in a ukulele band, and what we do as a group is we go to old folks' homes and we entertain them with old songs. And they just get involved with that and they start to sing, especially when we go to the dementia units. They all of a sudden perk up and go. So I want to let you know that dream that I had to hear again made me smile so big that I could eat a banana sideways. And now I get to go out and show people, if you have an obstacle, turn it into a challenge, choose, and you can make it happen.
Our next speaker is Kim Taylor. With nearly 25 years as an executive coach, leadership development advisor, and health and wellness advocate, Kim Taylor helps people bring about transformative change to experience a more integrative way of living and working. And she focuses on creating inner peace as the pathway to productivity, effectiveness, and dynamic leadership. Please welcome Kim Taylor.
Have you ever stood in a long line to order food when you're in a hurry? Maybe feeling anxious, maybe hangry? Have you ever been the person behind the counter serving up that food? Maybe feeling frantic? Travel with me to the summer of 1987. I'm 19 years old, working in Yosemite National Park. Blue skies, granite mountains on all sides, and the fragrant smell of pine trees everywhere. Calm and inspiring. But not everyone was calm in Yosemite. Every day, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., the scene was chaos and the line seemingly endless at the Curry Village hamburger stand. Now, here's the setup. Located on an outdoor deck, we had 2 huge menus on either side of the ordering window. Now, the menu was simple and easily viewable from the entire deck. We served hamburgers, fries, chicken fingers. That's about it. Hungry families would stand in line, peering at us with laser-like intensity, as if they could move things along by sheer force of will. When it was finally their turn, to order, they'd walk up to the window and inevitably, they'd lean on the counter, look up at the menu, and then yell to their spouse, "Honey, what do you want?" Despite this, I worked frantically to work my way through the line. I could feel their frustration, and I thought if I could only work faster, I could get to the end of the line and make everybody happy. Everyone but me, I was super stressed, and I was becoming less and less friendly because I was no longer focused on serving people, but rather getting to the end of the line and eliminating their frustration with me. One day it hit me. Kimberly. I always use my full name when I'm having a moment with myself. Kimberly. There is no end of the line. For every person you serve, another 5 get in line. You can't work fast enough to get to the end, and you shouldn't abandon your values in an effort to change someone's mood. It dawned on me. I had ditched my friendly, engaging style and replaced it with impatience and frustration equal to theirs. They were mad at me for their circumstance, and I became mad at them for mine. I had lost my internal compass, and I was miserable. So, in this revelation, I suddenly saw the whole thing from a completely different perspective, and it changed everything for me. That summer in Yosemite, I learned some of the most important lessons of my life. 1, be in your moment. Sometimes there is no such thing as the end of the line, so stop chasing it. Allow yourself to experience your moments, not just rush through them, because your life is your moment. 2, maintain your compass. Don't let what's happening around you dictate what happens inside you. And finally, create with care. Each of us has the power to create the world in which we live through every action and interaction. So bring goodness to yourself and those around you, no matter the circumstances. Over the years, I've reflected on these lessons many times. They're like little golden nuggets of wisdom in my life. And my hope is that you too found little bits of gold as well.
Our next speaker is Marty McNabb. Marty sold her apartment in Brooklyn, New York over 6 years ago and hit the road in Brooklyn, her 21-foot camper van, along with Flatsy, a flat image of a cat, not a squished cat, as her travel companion. She's hosted more than 250 story-sharing gatherings about the stories that get attached to things with a capital T. She's on a mission to build deeper connections, community, and legacy through the stories of these things that matter. Please welcome Marty McNabb.
All right, so if I asked you what things would tell your life story, what things would you choose? Perhaps your grandfather's watch that you saw your grandfather wear his entire life, well, your entire life, that you inherited when he died. It doesn't work anymore, but you wear it because it reminds you of him. Or could it be like your friend who has these ceramic cow-shaped creamers or pitchers that have always been in her kitchen. And you've seen them there for years, but you really don't know the story. Or perhaps it's this black doctor's bag, leather bag, old one, in your aunt's house. And you've seen it there, but you're like, did we have a doctor in the family? You don't know because you never asked about that. Or perhaps it was your good friend's, like your good friend's old worn out Yeti cup and his really used, well-used wallet that, you know, he's got a bit more money than this. He could probably afford to get new stuff, but it's been with him always, and you wonder why. Why does he keep that? Or your mom-in-law's has this strange-looking rock up on the windowsill, and you're like, I wonder where she got that. I wonder why she keeps it, what it reminds her of. Well, needless to say, I am not a big believer in the fact that things matter. I don't think that they do. I live in a 21-foot Winnebago Travato camper van that's parked down on the street there, so I can't have a lot of stuff. I also live in 2 other places too, and there's some stuff there. But it's not that the things matter, but it's the stories that get attached to them that do. So I invite you to think about the stories of the things that you surround yourself with, the ones, the things that are in your home, in your office, the things you adorn yourself with. As I walked in today, I saw all of you with jewelry and beautiful clothing. Your boots tell stories. You know, everything we have tells a story. Our homes are like mini museums. Remember, these are the things you keep, the things that matter, the things you will leave behind. Do people in your life, do your loved ones know your stories? I encourage you to take the time, because we always think we have time until we don't. Take this time to look around you and your loved ones' homes and places and ask stories. Have this experience of show and tell from elementary school. Ask the stories of these things that matter. Because I believe that it's through sharing our stories that we become vulnerable and generous. And that stories have the power to change the world. Make sure you take the time to share yours. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Eva Fanari. She was born and raised in the former Soviet Union in what is today's Estonia. She came to the US to continue her studies in history. Her main field of research was the history of conflict of ideologies and mindset. Please welcome Eva Fanari.
Do you remember when you were in the 2nd grade? Yeah, your experience may have been a little different from mine, but let me tell you, a 2nd grader is a 2nd grader, no matter where you go. So come with me to 1986, to the Soviet Union where I grew up. In my 2nd grade class, there were 28 kids. In charge of us was a woman of about this height, rotund, and 3 years away from retirement. Let's call her Miss Green. School lunch was a very important part of education in the Soviet Union. Each class had a long table with 14 kids on one side and 14 kids on the other side. The table had white tablecloth on it, and the table was always already set. Plates, silverware, the food was in large bowls and platters, and the kids were to serve themselves to learn about sharing and table manners. Miss Green would always sit at the end of the table like a mother hen guarding her chicks. But before she sat down, she would march up and down the table to make sure that every kid here had an acceptable amount of food on their plate. Because you see, eating was not optional, it was mandatory. You had to finish everything on your plate. Leaving something behind, not allowed. Do you know what that feels like? Mm-hmm. Now, it's rainbows and unicorns if you love what you eat, which almost never happens when you're 8 years old. At least once a week, we were served potatoes and gravy, and the gravy had chunks of meat in it, which was really chunks of fat. You know those jiggly bits that feel like live snails under your tongue and make most people gag? Yeah. Try feeding that to a bunch of 8-year-olds. Mm-hmm. Our greatest fear was not dying in the hands of KGB and communism. It was dying choking on one of those fat globules. Miss Green did her best at the end of the table, holding up a fork with a fat cube on it and telling us, kids, fat is so important to your diet. You have to eat it. And then she would pretend to eat it. Look how good it is. It just so happened that on that year, when it was Miss Green's birthday, it was potato and gravy day. And we were sitting there at the long table and we were thinking to come up with a great surprise for our teacher. Something that she really loves. Where can we get something she really loves that doesn't cost us any money? Because when you're 8, you're broke, right? And that's easily available to us, the fat cubes. So we just like passed on our fat cubes when Miss Green was not watching, piling it all on her plate, on the rim of her plate like an Adrian Wall. We didn't think this through. Because when Miss Green arrived at her plate, she was so upset. All life left her face. And her chin was shaking as she was holding back tears. We were marched out of that cafeteria. The parents were summoned. Principal was called. We were not allowed to go back to the cafeteria for 2 weeks. And we had no idea what had happened. Because to us, she got what she wanted. She loved the fat cubes. What was the problem? It wasn't until years and years later, reflecting back on it, when I realized what had happened. You see, in life, you don't get what you want. You get what you focus on. Where you invest your energy, that's what you are going to get in life. And that's what had happened to Miss Green. She didn't realize how much she was talking about how she loved the fat cubes, but 28 8-year-olds were paying attention. And the world pays attention. So where does your focus go? That's what you'll get.
While our judges are out tallying up the scores, let's have a few words from this year's president of the National Speakers Association New Mexico chapter, Gail Geary.
Some of you may know that the National Speakers Association was founded by a gentleman by the name of Cavett, and there is something known as the spirit of Cavett. In many organizations, people are fighting over the same piece of pie, right? And he says, no, that's wrong. Let's build a bigger pie, and let's just help each other. So there is such an incredible spirit of generosity and support. We're not competing with each other. we are supporting each other. We're creating that pie and making it bigger. We bring in guest speakers that help you build a better business, and as you heard from Ava, become a better speaker.
So our judges have decided we have a winner and a runner-up that we would like to recognize. Our runner-up is Kim Taylor.
Thank you.
The winner for our NSA New Mexico chapter storytelling competition is Ava Fenori. Congratulations. And thank you for watching our competition, and stay safe and check out our website, nsanewmexico.org.